So now let's do mole to gram conversion. So instead of using formula here, we'll just use conversion scale. So let's see this question. How many grams are there in 4.6 moles of carbon atom? Now, what does the question mean? That is, as you read the question, what do you understand by the question? Remember, you find relative molecular mass. What is relative molecular mass? And we change it to molar mass by adding gram per mole. What is now that molar mass? It means if I have 3 grams per mole, 3 grams per mole means for every 1 mole of that thing there are 3 grams. That is the meaning of 3 grams per mole. So for every 1 mole of that a certain substances there are 3 grams. Now for carbon, for example, now, so carbon is 12. So the relative atomic mass is 12. Remember, if it is an atom, so its relative atomic mass. If it is a molecule, its relative molecular mass. So now for carbon, the atomic mass for carbon is 12. So but the molar mass for carbon will now be 12 grams per mole. You know, that per mole means 12 gram over mole. That is the meaning of per mole raised to power minus 1. So if I cross multiply, it means 1 mole of carbon will be equals to 12 gram. So now that is exactly what you are that is exactly what your molar mass means. That is 12 gram per moles means for every mole of carbon there are 12 gram. So that means if you weigh carbon on scale, for example, let's say we have a scale now and you weigh carbon on scale. So if you weigh 12 gram, you have already weighed 1 mole of carbon. And know that 1 mole of this carbon, if it's possible for you to count it one by one, it will be 6.02 times 10 raised to power 23. So that is why mole is the scientific way of counting things. So now, this is the concept we'll be using in solving questions on mole. So using the conversion scale. So now, how many grams are there in 4.6 moles of carbon atom? So we have 4.6 moles of carbon atom divided by 1. So always start with what you have in the question. I'm not using formula now. So if I'm using formula, I'll use number of moles is mass over molar mass. But learn this concept. This concept is useful and it will really help you in solving calculations in chemistry. So now, according to the question, we have 4.6 moles of carbon. Now we want to know how many gram will this one be. Meaning if I have 4.6 moles of carbon, if I weigh it on scale, how many gram is it going to weigh? That's the meaning. So now start with that 4.6 mole divided by 1 times. So in this method, always start with what you have in the question. You have 4.6 moles of carbon. So now your conversion scale is, what is the anytime gram is involved, that is if you are looking for gram, just know that you are using your relative molecular mass and you just put gram per mole to get molar mass if gram is involved. Now here we want to find how many gram are there in 4.6 moles of carbon atom. So I have to write 4.6 mole of carbon atom over 1. That is I want to change this one to gram. So now what is my conversion scale? I have known that 1 mole of carbon is 12 gram of carbon, meaning the atomic mass of carbon is 12. If it is molecule, you need to find the relative molecular mass. So we'll still see that in another example. So 1 mole of carbon weighs 12 gram of carbon. So now if you look at these two, I have to place it under 1 mole of carbon, 12 gram of carbon. This is how I will use it here. But now which one will I write under here and which one will I write here? Is it this I will write under or this I will write under? Is it this I will write on top or this I will write on top? So to know which one you will write under or which one will be on top, look at your question. You have mole of carbon up, so you have to place mole of carbon down so that mole of carbon will cancel mole. So anyone you will place under here, make sure is the one that will cancel out the one you have here. Please take note. So now that means 1 mole of carbon will give me 12 gram of carbon, and that is all. So now 1 mole of carbon will cancel 1 mole of carbon, so it remain 4.6 times 12 gram of carbon divided by 1. You know, this is 1 times 1. So 4.6 times 12. So you get 55.2 gram of carbon. That is the answer. That means if you weigh 4.6 moles of carbon on scale, it's going to give you 55.2 gram. That is the meaning of your molar mass. So that means gram per mole means for every 1 mole of that thing it weighs a certain gram. So that is the answer to this question. So not that you should just be solving a question, you should also understand the question. So this question now, how many grams are there in 4.6 moles of carbon atom? Meaning if I weigh 4.6 mole of carbon atom, it will weigh 55.2 gram. That is the meaning. So now, and you should remember the conversion scale. Always start with what you have in the question, then times, then you will now use your 1 mole of carbon is 12 gram of carbon, then place mole under. So we'll see another example in another video. So in another video we'll do more examples. This is just like concepts.